Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub, broadcasted live in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. This is the first episode, the debut, the pilot of Vegas Hockey Hub. It's going to be a fantastic show put on for all of you around the sports world. Now, before we look into the future, before we discuss the present Vegas Golden Knights, before we go into the long NHL season that's just around the corner, before we really get into what the Vegas Golden Knights are going to do in 2022, we have to go back. We have to go back and we need to discuss and we need to revisit the 2017 NHL Expansion Draft. We need to look back and we need to see how the Vegas Golden Knights got to where they are now. Because whether you like it or not, if you're a hockey fan, if you're not, if you're a casual, if you're a diehard, the 2017 NHL Expansion Draft is how the Vegas Golden Knights became who they are. The 2017 Vegas Golden Knights is a big part of how the 2022 Vegas Golden Knights have been created and built. So as we're looking back at the 2017 NHL Expansion Draft 5 years later and saying where these players went and where they are now here on Vegas Hockey Hub, we're going to start with the forwards, the 14 forwards that got drafted, then move over to the 13 defensemen that were selected. Then you have the trio of goalies, and then you're going to have players that were selected via trades or via moves that happened afterwards. So starting from the top and working its way down to the bottom, the Philadelphia Flyers, them getting Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, man, that was a great move by the Vegas Golden Knights. Not only was Bellemare a solid bottom six forward for Vegas, where he had the leadership quality, he was a guy in the locker room that people trusted. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, even though it was only a couple of years he was in Las Vegas, he made a huge impact on the stability of the bottom six in Las Vegas. So, what happened to Pierre-Edouard Bellemare after leaving Las Vegas? So he goes to Colorado, he signs with them, 2-year deal, was still a solid contributor on the bottom six for Colorado. And now, past season and this upcoming season, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is on the dynasty in the making, the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that won back-to-back Stanley Cups, a team that went to a trio of Stanley Cups back-to-back-to-back. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare staying in Tampa Bay and going to Colorado really shows you that he is a solid player on the bottom six. He's one of those guys. And I've said this about hockey for a long time. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is an example of a player that outside of your city, most people aren't going to know. But in your city, they are one of the most liked, one of the most loved, one of the most appreciated players on the team because of their work ethic and how they play the game. So Pierre-Edouard Bellemare was the first one taken by Philadelphia. Fantastic choice by George McPhee and by Bill Foley and all the scouting and everyone out there in Las Vegas. But yeah, Bellemare now in Tampa Bay on the bottom six out there in the dynasty out there in Tampa. Connor Brickley, I'm going to spend half a minute on him. He was selected by Carolina, did not play a single game in Las Vegas as he's signed with the Florida Panthers, never even played in Las Vegas. Now, moving on from that, William Carrier in the Buffalo Sabres. Now, there's going to be a show here on Vegas Hockey Hub later down the line talking about how the Buffalo Sabres are really the most perfect partner for the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm going to talk about later in Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm going to make an entire video about how the Buffalo Sabres is probably the best trade partner and the best friend the Vegas Golden Knights have. They work really well together, Buffalo and Vegas does. But back to William Carrier. He was selected by the Buffalo Sabres. He only played half a season in Buffalo. He was only there for 1 year. Comes to Las Vegas. He struggles his first 2 seasons in Las Vegas, but he has picked it up the last 3 seasons. He has had over 15 points every single year since 2018. And let's call William Carrier what he is in Las Vegas. William Carrier is a stone hand. He is a guy who tosses his body around. When it comes to William Carrier, he is a guy that brings stability to the bottom six. William Carrier is someone that you can look at and see that he is going to bring some presence to the bottom six. He is going to ruin somebody's day by tossing him into the boards, by moving them around. That is what William Carrier is going to do. And that's what he has been doing for the last 5 years. There's a reason why the Vegas Golden Knights paid William Carrier very handsomely to stay in Las Vegas because he's a solid contributor on the bottom six and he knows his role and he does it very well. In fact, William Carrier is one of the only 6 people on this list that has been here from the very beginning. William Carrier is one of the original misfits that has stayed around. Why? Because he knows how to do his job. So it was a solid move getting him from Buffalo. And this is not put up on here, but here's a fun fact for you. The Buffalo Sabres actually gave up a draft pick in the deal. They gave up a 6th-round draft pick in 2017. That 6th-round draft pick has become goaltender Jari Patara. And Patara, he has become a good goaltender in the AHL for the Henderson Silver Knights. I got to see him play at the Dollar Loan Center back in 2022. And Jari Patara, he has been a solid goaltender in the AHL. So them getting him, thanks to William Carrier, that's a good move. Moving back down the list as we're looking back to 2017 NHL Expansion Draft here on Vegas Hockey Hub with your host Ian Rachiele. Cody Eakin is a weird one. Because on one hand, there was the debacle about Bill Foley saying the Detroit Red Wings select Cody Eakin. It was actually one of the funny parts of the draft. I was there in 2017 during the expansion draft. It was a funny moment. Bill Foley saying that they got him from the Detroit Red Wings. He wasn't. They got him from the Dallas Stars. So he comes from the Dallas Stars. He was a productive guy in the middle six for Dallas. He comes to Vegas, and he had some solid momentum. He had some solid momentum in the middle six for Vegas, but it just became too crowded. Biggest issue with Vegas, really in the middle of their run, was that the more the crowded it became, the less you could use guys like Cody Eakin. The more crowded it got, the less you could use the guy who's right below him in Eric Holla. So the better Vegas got, and the more successful the Vegas Golden Knights became, Cody Eakin unfortunately became a casualty of just having too much good talent in Vegas. So Cody Eakin, he goes to the Winnipeg Jets. Then he plays for the Buffalo Sabres. Hey, Buffalo Sabres pop up again. He goes to Buffalo, and he just did a professional tryout this preseason with the Calgary Flames. They decided to not bring him back. So that's what Cody Eakin was doing now. Cody Eakin did not get brought back by the Calgary Flames, and with the portion of his career where he is now, there'll be a question to see if he goes overseas and plays in one of those leagues, or if he announces his retirement and becomes a coach someplace else. So that's what happened to Cody Eakin, who got drafted by the Dallas Stars. He had a tryout with the Calgary Flames this past offseason and was not brought back. Eric Holla is a player I genuinely feel bad for. The reason why I genuinely feel bad for Eric Holla is because almost everything that happened to him did not have to happen. Now, Eric Holla, he gets drafted by the Minnesota Wild. He has an excellent year one for the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, he put up so many goals, nearly a 30-goal score out here in Vegas. Once again, a middle six forward for the Vegas Golden Knights. He puts up stellar numbers in his first 2 seasons, but then the injury happened in Toronto. There was the incident where him and Patrick Marleau, they collided. He landed down awkwardly. It was a very nasty and gruesome situation. So he misses a portion of the year, and then that off season afterwards, The Vegas Golden Knights, on his birthday, by the way, traded Eric Holla. They send him to Carolina for a prospect at the time named Nicholas Waugh. Now, Nicholas Waugh came from the Eric Holla deal. Interesting how that popped up, by the way. But yes, Eric Holla, he is traded to Carolina. He has a interesting time in Carolina. Wasn't really great, wasn't really bad. It was just kind of your average time in Carolina. And then he signs a deal to go to Boston, and he spends his one season in Boston. Once again, a guy in the middle six for the Boston Bruins, and then he gets flipped this offseason. So back in July, Boston Bruins, New Jersey Devils did a 1v1 swap. Boston Bruins sent Eric Holla to New Jersey in exchange for Pavel Zacha. So Eric Holla is now a member of the New Jersey Devils, once again in the middle six, which really has been his role for the last 4 or 5 years. But it's interesting to see that Eric Holla has consistently been a guy in the middle six. However, the consistency has also been he's been moved around almost every single season he's been in the NHL. That's where Eric Holla is now, 5 years after the expansion draft. Just got traded to the New Jersey Devils. He's going to be part of their middle six for 2022. William Karlsson, who they acquired from the Florida Panthers. Now, I will say when it comes to William Karlsson, it was a situation where you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, they had a guy named Josh Anderson, for example, and there was a lot of people who believed that Josh Anderson was going to go to the Vegas Golden Knights. Josh Anderson was a scorer. He was a guy that could really pass the puck around out there in Columbus. A lot of people assumed he was going to go to Las Vegas. Instead, they get William Karlsson, but they also got a bunch of futures back. They had a first round pick. They had to get the contract to David Clarkson. The Columbus Blue Jackets unloaded a certain amount of futures to have them take William Karlsson. Man, right out the gate, year one, William Karlsson has 78 points. He leads the franchise in terms of all-time points. William Karlsson has an amazing year one. Well, he repeats that in year two. Sure enough, he repeats that in year two. He puts up an excellent season. He has a memorable situation where he put up a good amount of points. He had that goal between the legs against San Jose. William Karlsson, Wild Bill, became a fan favorite in Las Vegas. William Karlsson became the guy that people loved here in Las Vegas. So the Vegas Golden Knights, Bill Foley, George McKee, they opened the bank for him. They opened the Brinks truck for William Karlsson. They signed him to a massive deal to give him $5.95 million per year until 2027. Now, at the time, this was a great move. They were locking up William Karlsson, who looked like a potential first-line guy for the next decade in Las Vegas. That's what it looked like. Now, fast forward to what William Karlsson is at now. William Karlsson is averaging about 10 to 15 goals a year. William Karlsson is averaging around 30 to 40 points per season. William Karlsson last year had less points than he had goals in year one. So William Karlsson is an interesting situation where he had a fantastic start in the NHL. He had a fantastic start in Las Vegas, but unfortunately just wasn't able to capitalize on it and has shown a little bit of regression. Now, what you're going to hope for as a Vegas Golden Knights fan, and what we hope for here on Vegas Hockey Hub, is that for year six, William Karlsson starts to turn it back around. William Karlsson being in the middle six now, William Karlsson starts to show some form of improvement, some form of rebound from what happened the last two seasons. Maybe he can score 20 goals once again for the Vegas Golden Knights in the middle six. That is the hopeful part for William Karlsson. So, William Karlsson, who was taken by Columbus, one of the misfits that is still with the Vegas Golden Knights as of this day. Brendan Lepsick, his situation, I am not going to go into full detail because I do not want to talk about what he said and what he did with the Washington Capitals. So I'm just going to recap it like this. Brandon Lepsick was taken by the Toronto Maple Leafs. He played one season in Las Vegas. They shipped him out. Played for LA, played for Washington, made a very, very poor decision, really bad statement by Brandon Lepsick. And now he plays in the KHL. So Brandon Lepsick now in the KHL. We'll move on from there. Speaking of guys who are playing in Europe, you have Oscar Lindberg, who's taken by the New York Rangers, played 2 seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights before being dealt to the Ottawa Senators in the Mark Stone deal. So Mark Stone was traded to Vegas. Oscar Lindberg was one of the 4 pieces that was in that deal. He plays for Ottawa for a little bit, and now Oscar Lindberg is back in the SHL, playing in Sweden, playing professional hockey uh, out there in Europe. So Oscar Lindberg was taken by the New York Rangers, played 2 seasons in Vegas, now plays in the Swedish Professional Hockey League. Jonathan Marchessault, the guy who's been the heart, the soul, the passion of the Vegas Golden Knights, a fan favorite, an all-star for the Vegas Golden Knights. There really isn't much praise I can give that people haven't already given to Jonathan Marchessault. He was taken by the Florida Panthers, had an amazing first season, 66 points in his first year in Vegas. They gave him a 5-year deal, and when it came to Jonathan Marchessault, a lot of people, including myself, saw him as a bridge, as an anchor, as a pillar to the Vegas Golden Knights, and sure enough, he has been. He has been consistently in the top 6 for the Vegas Golden Knights, whether it be on the first line with the MSK line, or if he is on the second line shooting slap shots with guys like Riley Smith, guys like Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Chandler Stevenson, Alex Tuck, you name it. Jonathan Marchessault has done well in almost every line he has been in. He has been a phenomenal player for Vegas. And when Jonathan Marchessault has to become a free agent after the end of that 6-year deal he signed with the Vegas Golden Knights back in year one, he is going to get paid handsomely either by Vegas or by some other organization for being an all-star and a reliable piece of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the Nashville Predators was James Neal. I was at the 2017 NHL Expansion Draft. When James Neal was called, you heard a pop at T-Mobile Arena. When James Neal was selected by Nashville, people knew who he was. He played for Dallas, he played for Pittsburgh, played for Nashville. He was an established veteran, a solid goal scorer. In fact, most people in the preseason had James Neal as the best goal scorer for Vegas. Obviously, it ended up being William Karlsson. So James Neal plays 1 season in Vegas, signs a massive deal with Calgary, plays 2 seasons with them, gets flipped to Edmonton for Milan Lucic. He plays 2 seasons in Edmonton. They buy him out, and now his career has been professional tryout after professional tryout after professional tryout. He had a professional tryout with the St. Louis Blues in 2021, played for them for a little bit, and then even played for their AHL Springfield Thunderbirds for a little bit. And then this offseason, he signed a professional tryout with the Columbus Blue Jackets, spent the preseason and training camp in Columbus, and was part of the final roster cut this preseason. So with James Neal being in his mid-30s now, it'll be interesting to see what happens to James Neal. Will he keep going? Will he sign a veteran's minimum? James Neal being let go by Columbus after doing a professional tryout with them at PTO, it will be interesting to see what happens to James Neal. So yes, James Neal selected by Nashville, played a season in Vegas, and then just got let go from his PTO from Columbus. So moving on, talking about Tomas Nosek, taken by Detroit, was a prospect, a fringe bottom 6 guy in Detroit, comes to Las Vegas, spends 3 seasons with the Golden Knights, and was a reliable bottom 6 forward. He scored plenty of goals, especially that goal in the Stanley Cup Finals for the Vegas Golden Knights. And after those 3 seasons, he goes to the Boston Bruins, signs a deal with them and is now on the bottom six for the Boston Bruins. As a matter of fact, when Bruce Cassidy got hired by the Vegas Golden Knights, some Golden Knights fans were hoping he would take Tomas Nosek back with him because of how much a fan favorite Tomas Nosek was on the bottom six in Las Vegas. So Tomas Nosek was taken by Detroit, played a few seasons in Vegas, is now on the bottom six in Boston. The next player on this list, man, there is so much I could talk about, so much I could say. I'm going to make it very short and brief. David Perron was an established player in the NHL when the Vegas Golden Knights took him. David Perron was drafted by St. Louis, had some of his best seasons in St. Louis, and was left exposed by St. Louis, ironically enough, for Ryan Reeves. Of course, we all know that Ryan Reeves would eventually get traded to Vegas at the trade deadline in 2018. But David Perron left exposed, taken by Vegas, put up an excellent first season. I think he had about 55, 57 points for the Vegas Golden Knights. He was a veteran. He was established, solid player in year one. And then he goes back to St. Louis. So he signs a deal with St. Louis, plays 4 more years in St. Louis, gets himself a Stanley Cup in 2019, and then this offseason signed a very rich deal to go from St. Louis to Detroit. So David Perron now going to be on the top six, playing for Steve Yzerman and the Detroit Red Wings. So that's what happened to David Perron, taken by St. Louis, went back to St. Louis, and is now in Detroit. Now, the next two, I'll make it very brief. They did not play for the Vegas Golden Knights. Timo Pokkanen was taken by Arizona, was in the preseason, but then played in the AHL for 1 year. Now he plays in the KHL. Chris Warburn was taken by Winnipeg, did not play a single game for the Vegas Golden Knights, went to St. Louis in the offseason, and won a Stanley Cup alongside David Perron. Now, the defensemen, I'm actually going to go by a majority of these very quickly because a lot of them didn't even play for the team. Alexei Emelin was taken by Montreal, was flipped immediately to Nashville. Jason Garrison was taken by Tampa Bay, played for the Vegas Golden Knights in year one, then was eventually let go. He just played for the AHL Syracuse Crunch, who was the affiliate of the Tampa Bay Lightning this past season. Mark Mafat was taken by Ottawa, was traded to Dallas for Dylan Ferguson. That's an interesting name there. Was traded for Dylan Ferguson, and he actually retired recently with the Dallas Stars, and he is now doing a show about hockey. So he does a hockey show now. Griffin Reinhart was taken by Edmonton, played 1 year with Vegas. Now he is playing overseas. David Schlemko was taken by San Jose, was immediately flipped to Montreal, and then a few years later was flipped to Philadelphia, where he retired after the end of 2020. Clayton Stoner, he was taken by Anaheim, never played a game for the Vegas Golden Knights, but if it wasn't for him, he would not get somebody we'll talk about later. And Trevor Van Riemsdyk, they took from the Chicago Blackhawks, did not even spend 24 hours with the Vegas Golden Knights, was traded to Carolina, and now he plays for the Washington Capitals on the bottom line of their defense. So, Derek England was taken by Calgary, was a Vegas hometown hero, was on commercials all the time out here in Vegas. He had a solid 4 year run with the Vegas Golden Knights, retired after the end of 2020, and now is an advisor to Bill Foley and the organization. Brayden McNabb has been reliable, has been consistent, has been one of the best players the Vegas Golden Knights has taken. One of the 6 players on this list that's still with the Golden Knights. He is a top, reliable defenseman in Vegas. John Merrill was taken by New Jersey, former second-round pick. Played a few years in Vegas. They flipped him to, sent him someplace. Now he is playing for the Minnesota Wild on their bottom six, one of the reliable veterans out there in Minnesota. Colin Miller, taken by Boston, only played 2 years in Boston beforehand. Played 2 seasons for the Vegas Golden Knights. was traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Hey, there's Buffalo again. Now he plays with the Dallas Stars after signing an off-season deal with Dallas. Lucas Pisa was taken by Vancouver, played one season with the Vegas Golden Knights, made a few stops in Winnipeg and Nashville, but now is a coach for the San Jose Sharks. Nate Schmidt was a fan favorite here in Las Vegas. Everyone liked Nate Schmidt. He's played 3 seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights before being dealt to clear up space for Alex Petrangelo to join the Vegas Golden Knights. He spent some time in Vancouver, now plays for the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm going to make these two goalies very quickly. JF Berube was signed by Chicago the very next day, so he didn't even play a single game for the Vegas Golden Knights. Calvin Pickard played the preseason for Vegas before he got dealt. He got dealt to Toronto, and now he plays for the Edmonton Oilers in their AHL team. So, Marc-Andre Fleury, you have to mention him. You have to. When it comes to Marc-Andre Fleury, he was the captain. He was the face of the franchise. He was someone that you could relate to out there in Las Vegas. Marc-Andre Fleury had that smile. He had a likable personality. Everyone knew who Marc-Andre Fleury was. So with him being the face of the franchise for really the first 3 years of the organization, he got traded to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now he is playing for the Minnesota Wild. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. And I know that we have about 5 minutes left here on the show, so I'm going to rapid fire these next 6. Shea Theodore, a future top defenseman for the Vegas Golden Knights, the guy that got from the Clayton Stoner pick out there in Anaheim. Shea Theodore playing on one of the best team-friendly deals the NHL has to offer. And honestly, Shea Theodore is honestly being underpaid. You ask about the production that Shea Theodore has. He gets paid $5.25 million. I honestly think he should be getting paid $8.5 million, but that's just me. David Clarkson was taken in Columbus in the William Karlsson deal. He never played a single game for the Vegas Golden Knights. However, he got dealt back to Toronto the next offseason after they took him. Riley Smith has become a vital part of the Vegas Golden Knights. Personally, one of my favorite players on the Vegas Golden Knights is Riley Smith. He's likable, he's consistent, knows how to get this job done, has been a good player on the top 6. Alex Tuch was a young prospect, a 2014 first-round pick by the Minnesota Wild. They got him for selecting Eric Haula and not Matt Dumba. Now, Alex Tuch had 5 amazing seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights, but unfortunately was stuck in the middle 6. Similar to Cody Eakin, similar to Eric Haula, he was just unfortunately on a stacked roster that just didn't have anywhere to go. Well, this past season, the Vegas Golden Knights sent Alex Tuch, prospect Peyton Krebs, and multiple first-round picks to get Jack Eichel from the Buffalo Sabres. Alex Tuch right now looks like the future of the Buffalo Sabres, and I will not be surprised if he becomes a captain someday in Buffalo. That's how good he is. Mikhail Bobrovsky took him for the New York Islanders to take JF Berube. Never played a single game for the Vegas Golden Knights, was injured, and never played a single game. Jake Bischoff, they got him to the New York Islanders by taking JF Berube. Jake Bischoff spent 5 seasons with the Golden Knights organization, splitting time between the AHL and the NHL, and is still with the Vegas Golden Knights playing for the Henderson Silver Knights as we speak. And lastly, Nikita Gusev was this prospect from Russia that everybody wanted to get. He was taken by Tampa Bay to get Jason Garrison, and he did not play a single game for Vegas. They flipped him to New Jersey. He has been with Florida, he's been with Toronto, he's been all over the NHL. He never played for the Vegas Golden Knights despite all the hype. Now, that was a look back at the 2017 NHL Expansion Draft here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I am your host, Ian Rachiele. This is episode 1, and we are going to continue this conversation tomorrow. We're going to look into the KHL being the farm system for the NHL. But until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Have